Blue Penguin again, Tim. You see the social media tag right there at the bottom. Today, via voice, I am joined by Eboni. Ebony is here to kind of introduce me to the National Women's Soccer League, the NWSL, and kick off this project of figuring out exactly what the NWSL is, why it's quality entertainment, why we want to not pass on this league, and then lead us into eventually figuring out which team we really should support, especially if you're not local, if you aren't in one of those 12 cities where the NWSL reigns, then figuring out which team it is that piques your interest and helps you out. So, Ebony, thanks for joining us. A little bit about yourself and when you how you got started watching the NWSL when it got here.
So, my name's Ebony. I'm based in North Carolina. I started watching the league not too long. Well, they started not too long after the 2011 World Cup, I believe.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Because they've been around since 2012. So I started watching them then. At that time, I didn't have a local team. So I was supporting Seattle. At that time, they were the Seattle Reign instead of OL. But and then my team came to town, the Courage, and I've been supporting the Courage ever since. But really, I'm just a fan of all women's soccer in general. So you'll see me in North Carolina one game, and then LA the next, or Chicago or DC.
Nice.
So
yeah, you were definitely pointed out to me by some of the people that were when I was consulting to get this part on that you've got a real good knowledge and a real love of the NWSL. So what is it aside from it being a women's league? What is it really about the NWSL that captures the interest? What's the unique features of it is that you might not expect?
Just the how close you can be to some of these teams and players, just because they are the only. Well, they won't be after 2024, but they were the only D1 professional soccer team league in the U.S. And there was a lot of semi-pro or development teams all around, and they still are. Shout out to the W, but it's different when you can make money doing the game you love. So that's what really drew me in. It's just I needed a team, and if I was going to be in this space and advocate for women or non-men to play this sport, then I needed to support this league. It's grown bigger than whatever I could afford it. But it's brought in some really cool investors and people and cities that you probably wouldn't think would be able to support women's soccer, but here they are. This league is magic in terms of bringing some really cool people into the scope of women's soccer and women's sports in general.
Yeah, and some of the investors you're mentioning, Sue Bird, Brittany Mahomes down in Kansas City, Natalie Portman, who's the owner of Angel City. Those are kind of the you wouldn't think of it, the magical investors that you're talking about, right?
Yeah, you don't think you would see Eli Manning all of a sudden owning a piece of Gotham FC, and it's just the way that these teams are being built. James Harden owning a piece of the Dash, it's just it's these local people investing in local soccer that happens to just be women playing it, and those names resonate with you. That's what makes this league so unique in the terms of who's coming in and who's splashing cash to make this stay, because this is now our third one, and we were always looking at that year 4 mark, and now we're looking at year 15, what's next.
Right.
So that's what really makes this league very special.
Yeah, finally getting over that same hurdle that MLS did a couple of 3 years ago or so, where hey, we are here, we're established. Now we can look at just building on that momentum.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you did mention some of the famous names in there. Is it? And you mentioned that sense of community. Do you get the sense better in the NWSL that they are really tied into the communities, maybe a little bit better than some of the MLS clubs are?
I would say that a lot of teams have started to figure out that soccer without community is nothing. So they
Yeah.
are really starting to tap into that community aspect. You're seeing it really well right now in LA. They're kind of like the front runner of like community. They still got
Mhm.
a long way to go, and that's for every team. But
Yeah.
they are really holding the mark right now.
Hmm.
Um, you're seeing it with DC,
Hmm.
Gotham, and
Yeah.
um, there's there's a lot more that a lot of these teams could be doing in the community, but you are starting to see that we are holding the blueprint right now for a lot of women's sports
Hmm.
in terms of what that looks like. And teams are catching up, especially within the NWSL. And then now it's just a matter of making sure we hold on to it and
Hmm.
keep keep the idea of community alive so that more people jump into it because they feel like they belong somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. The whole premise of this project and everything I'm doing is about the fact that soccer and sports, but soccer specifically, soccer support brings people together. It is a point of unity, and that's really what I'm looking for in a league. Absolutely, is that you get that sense of community within the NWSL and that's kind of where we're going, I think.
So even outside of teams, like the
Hmm.
community overall, like soccer is a very niche community. And then you
Yeah.
say women's soccer and it's even smaller.
Hmm.
Um, so the community that you build within the soccer supporter landscape is just as big as what the team is doing within the community.
Hmm.
Just because women's soccer fans are going to travel, we're going
Yeah.
to go see our favorite teams, but that
Hmm.
also opens us up to go see our friends that we haven't seen in a while.
Right.
All right. So, but she lives in California.
Hmm.
So it's that community of me being able to say, well, I still connect with you, even through
Hmm.
our love of the game, that I will travel to LA or she'll travel to North Carolina
Yeah.
to see her team play, but to also, connect with the community that we built. And like I have friends all over this country because of this small community of women's sports fans that I would have never had if I hadn't
Yeah.
joined, if I haven't gotten this league and these fans to come together. Not me personally, but like
Yeah.
this whole landscape. So that community that you're referring to as well is just as important.
One connects to two, to connects to four, and then and so forth, and exponential growth
Right.
and connection through a mutual love of a game. Um, that's that's the exact type of thing that I am looking for. Absolutely, when I go into support, is where's that connection, where's that community. Um, but aside from that, within the league, are there any other unique features? Anything that just the style of play, the way things happen on the pitch? Is there anything that really stands out to you and says you need to take notice of this league, not just for what they're doing off the pitch, but on the pitch?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, obviously you have your phenom stars and like Trinity Rodman, Alyssa
Yeah.
Thompson, Shaw, just
Mhm.
Olivia Wingate, Caroline Debine. You could like go on and on. They're all meshing these different types of styles of play of like a
Mhm.
physical, but like a really ticky tacky
Mhm.
pass out of the back, get you
Mhm.
30 touches on the ball before it's in the back of the opponent's net.
Yeah.
And more and more, we're seeing younger talent come into this league and just ball out. And that's just something that you don't get to see in a lot of places.
Mhm.
Like Liga MX, it's really cool about that. but you're not seeing the young phenoms come out of the WSL over in England.
Right.
You know, like they're very established teams. Like don't get me wrong, but I'm not seeing their stars of the future playing on Chelsea right now.
Right.
I'm not. Like, I'm watching Alyssa Thompson destroy back lines every week just because she got the opportunity to do that. And that's the great thing about this league, is that it's ever changing. They didn't know what to do with a 16-year-old that wanted to come play in this league with Moultrie.
Right.
And they had to figure it out. And now that they have, we're getting younger stars saying, I want to develop here more because I see a real opportunity for me to get onto my national team. So that's been really cool to see develop, and that's probably one of the best things about this league right now, is this ability to adapt and change to the new talent and the new generation coming in that's ready to ball out.
So do we kind of see a reverse? Because what we normally see is MLS develops and then they go over to Europe and they play in the men's league, and that's where they really come into their own. So we're seeing the Europeans then coming over to America more, and that's where they're really getting their chance to shine. Is that where I'm hearing?
I wouldn't even say you're seeing the Europeans. I say you're seeing the young youth stars, the USA youth stars stay, because it may not be the biggest paycheck, but you're being seen every week.
Right.
I can't say that about the WSL. I have to have 4 different subscriptions just to see the WSL play.
Yeah.
Granted, I have to have 3 just to watch a USA game, but at least that audience is being reached, right?
Right.
Like, that Vlatko is watching because hopefully he has a Paramount Plus account.
Right.
So.
And that's all it is. Every NWSL game, all through, I think the She Believes Cup and all of those, they're all on Paramount, right?
So She Believes would be HBO because that's a USA game.
Fair.
But yes, Challenge Cup.
That's the one.
Yeah. The regular season, Challenge Cup, playoffs, and final would all be a part of the Paramount Plus CBS package.
Okay. So yeah, as opposed to the leagues I'm used to following, I got to have ESPN Plus for one. I got to have Peacock, and then I might still have to have cable for the other. It's all packaged in one place, and that accessibility is key as well. If you want to have good soccer, you can just one subscription and you can find a very quality league.
Right.
So, how about the teams themselves? Are they? You're seeing the phenoms come up. You're seeing the stars, and are they reasonably distributed, or are we seeing kind of a domination, one team or another? Do we have like a Bayern or a Man City situation going on in the NWSL?
If you would say pre-pandemic, yes, because it was Portland for a couple years, and then it was Courage for like 4.
Right.
But now with the new CBA for the NWSL, it feels so much more balanced across the entire league, and that's even with like the super teams of like Kansas City or Angel City. Anybody can win or lose on any given day. Like, if you had told me last year that Gotham would be first in the league after winning 3 games last year, I would have looked at you crazy. But then you get players that are like Lynn Williams and Mitch Purse that just play together. They come into a squad and they don't know what's going to happen, and then all of a sudden they're top, right? And same thing with DC. Like, they won in spite of everything that was happening with their owner, and then they come back and they win it all, and then they get a really low season, and now here they are in 2nd or 3rd place.
Yeah.
Like, that's the parity of this league, and it is really cool to see that someone like Kansas City could be at the bottom this week, but also finish 2nd or 3rd in the standings come the end of the season. And they have like Debinha. Like, you would never count out a Debinha team to not score and win games, but here we are. So I think that the teams are very evenly matched on any given day, but you clearly see some of these like star-studded teams that are just like, yeah, we can do this. But right now it's just really cool to see some of the big teams not, I don't want to say not doing well, but being knocked down a few pegs by some of these smaller teams.
Right. And obviously, you being a Courage supporter, I'm sure you'd want them to win every game. But aside from that, do you like the parity? Do you like that fact?
I do. Like even when we lose games and we're still playing well, it takes a special fan to see that this is still a good team, right? It's not all. You can't just look at the wins and losses. The wins feel good, and the losses hurt, but you also have to realize that this is a brand new team, and from forward to defense, we lost a lot of players, but we also gained some really good players. I was very skeptical about our draft night, but Olivia Wingate has proven me wrong, and I will yell that from the rooftops. There's a lot of teams that are like that. They're like, oh, we didn't really do anything, but you like Portland. Portland didn't really do much in the offseason, but they were already a championship team, and they're still a championship team. And they're sitting in second. Like sometimes it's okay not to do too much splashing. And as for the Kurt, like it's gonna be a rocky season. But this is gonna be probably one of the most fun years in the league in terms of players just being able to play soccer. And push for first in the playoffs.
So the parity that comes in there, though, that's one of the things I think about some of the other leagues is because of the way they do transfers and the way they do rebuilding. If you've got a huge budget, then you're going to be able to buy your way to the top. But you mentioned the draft pick. So how exactly does that work for people that aren't familiar with how that soccer process works? I just sit there and think, okay, did you just buy a player? What do you mean there's a draft? So how exactly does that work?
Okay, so first and foremost, abolish the draft. The draft is so dumb. We should just be able to go out and get players we want.
Fair enough. Okay, but we're here now, and yeah.
But the draft. So players can declare for the draft. But once you declare for the draft, you lose your eligibility to play NCAA soccer anymore. Okay. And there's a predetermined draft list every year, and you can trade your draft picks. Teams can trade draft picks throughout the year to be like, oh, I want to go first in the order and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
And then all the players will register for the draft, and then they will be given this list at the very beginning, like a couple hours before. Because I think the draft, you have to declare like maybe 3 days. You have it to like 3 days before the draft day to actually declare.
Okay.
It's wild. It's the dumbest thing in the world, but this is what we have to do. And then you go down the line and you just start drafting players essentially. Basically just like any other NFL, NBA draft that we have here in the US. Smaller.
But you're only, so it's still only an amateur draft or only players that have played at the amateur level. If they've got pro behind them at all, you have to transfer for them?
No.
Or
no, if they declare for the draft, you can retain their rights. I think it's now they've gotten smarter about how long you can declare, you can retain their pick or their rights. Because it used to be like a really long time, and so players would be like, well, I don't want to play for that team, so I'm just not going to come to this league for 4 years. And they're like, but you're really good and you should be here. And they're like, no. So teams would hold players' rights hostage until they could use it to their advantage. So
yeah, and it seems like if you wanted to avoid that, you would just not declare for the draft. You just go through the regular transfer process.
But now we have discovery rights and things like that, and so we're slow. It feels like we're slowly building away from the draft, but it's taking too long for me. And I just want players to be able to sign where they want to sign, and us discover who we want to discover, and have them come over when they're ready to play for us, or for whatever team. I shouldn't just say us, for whatever team.
So with that, I guess that's a good time to kind of bring in the USL Super League and the new Division I that's going to go into women's soccer. How do you see that affecting the NWSL going forward?
it's gonna make them straighten up.
Okay.
There's another option now. Especially if you've been within a system that already had USL. That's an easy transition, and that's an easy way to continue your contract. And sometimes players are like, well, I just want to stay here.
Yeah.
So I don't have to sign for an NWSL team.
Right.
I can just go here, especially we don't know the rules yet. So maybe they don't have a draft and it's all just sign who you want and discovery and free agency and blah, blah, blah. That's a game changer.
Yeah.
Players want that freedom. So if that's how they're going to defer, oh man, Super League is about to make NWSL change some things and about their rules. Yeah. And if that's the case, NWSL has some work to do in this offseason. Then
kind of put on notice, as it were. Yeah. Do you think they will end up complementing each other? Do you think they'll work well? Do you think one's going to cancel the other out?
I don't think they cancel. Just I think because NWSL will always be where your big stars will come in, just because it's the flashy one. It's got USA backing, things like that. I feel like the Super League will just be kind of like if NWSL is 1A, Super League will be 1B, to where players will be like, well, if I don't want to step up to that marker yet and put myself out there to be moved or transferred or whatever their rules, however their rules differ, they'll just go, well, I'll just go to a Super League because then I can just develop my way up to that, and it won't take me as hard. It won't be as hard of a process because like some of these academy teams, like the USL W, and then they have an academy league, so right under the W and things like that. It's easy to make that transition up and I don't want to call it a pyramid, but up and down that line of development. And I don't think they'll compete, but they won't be competing for the same talent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it also, since you mentioned pyramid, it seems like USL is going to set up a little bit better for kind of that pro rel, given the smaller clubs. This is the Davids of the tier 1 cell. It seems like giving those smaller clubs the exposure and the chance to get up to that tier 1 level. I think with the NWSL and the Super League, as long as honestly, as long as we get a tournament between the two, I think I'm going to be happy with where they're at to start. That would be get the tier 1 tournament thing going and let them play. Do you plan on supporting the Super League? I'm guessing the Carolinas are getting a team, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm guessing you're planning on throwing your support that way as well.
So I mean, the Super League in North Carolina will be in Charlotte, which is 3 hours from me.
Fair.
Yeah. So
fair.
I mean, I will definitely support the league. But I don't think I could do that every weekend where I go down to Charlotte for a Super League game.
Yeah. As I understand, the North Carolina faithful don't exactly like Charlotte either. So
that too. So
yeah,
that will also do it. So I mean, no, I'll definitely support the league. I'm here to support anything that is going to grow women's soccer here in America. So I can't wait for them to start. I've got friends in the W League who are, and there's some really cool teams in the W League who I hope, move up to Super League so that they can, really expand and grow. But it should be a fun league. I'm excited. I know people are kind of confused about why they went from D2 to D1. I mean, I don't know all the details about it either, but it sounds like they have all the right reasons, and it's going to be a fun one.
Well, I think with the new USL president coming in and kind of like you said, let's put NWSL on notice for the good of the game overall. Competition breeds innovation, so I can see that happening. So we'll keep an eye on that. But kind of getting back, I guess, to the NWSL, because we kind of squirreled on the Super League and the exciting news from there. Let's talk about some of the key players. If you had to name off just some of the, I know you've already given us some, but just some of the key players that we watch, some of the national team, because I know there's a lot of the women's national team that's around. There are different national teams from other countries. Who are the key players that you'd watch if you just had a short list?
I mean, do you want a player from each team, or what do we? What?
Just kind of if I was just going to randomly flip on and I'm hoping to catch one of these players playing, that's the person you want to watch.
Oof. I mean, there's so many. Um, it will be easier for me to just go straight down the list. So let's
Go for it.
go.
Go for it.
So from Portland, you've got Crystal Dunn.
Okay.
That's a no brainer.
Right.
Seattle, so many good ones.
Mhm.
I mean, you got Megan Rapinoe right there. You've got
Right.
Fat there.
Hmm.
Um, San Diego, Alex Morgan is a household name, but the one you really should
Yeah.
be looking out for is Jaden Shaw.
Okay.
Um, Angel City, I mean, Alyssa Thompson she's going to be our present and future.
Okay.
So, Houston, Ebony Salmon,
Okay.
she is going to be a very bright spot for England coming up. I hope to see her at
Hmm.
the World Cup. Um,
Hmm.
Chicago, Mallory Swanson. I know she's injured right now, but
Yeah.
man, she's a star. Kansas City. Um, can't say anyone but Dabinia.
Yeah.
That's You have to be in your team, and you're adding at least a goal or two per game.
Yeah.
Bottom line. Racing Louisville, Uche, she's really, really talented, and
Okay.
Carson Pickett
Yep.
on the outside back. I
Hmm.
wish she was going to the World Cup, but just I don't see it in the cards.
Yeah.
Um, Gotham, you got Lynn Williams, Mitch
Okay.
Purse,
Okay.
very talented forwards who can just put the ball in the net.
Hmm.
Um, DC, Trinity Rodman, that's just gonna be
Yep.
she's gonna razzle dazzle you, make you fall, and then do a little dance as she scores past you.
Yep.
Courage, can't say anyone but Caroline. Uh,
Yeah.
it's another Dabinia adjacent, and
Hmm.
she's gonna put the ball in that.
Right.
And Orlando legend Marta,
Hmm.
but Messiah Bright is gonna be a star for us. So they better
Hmm.
get her in camp quick.
Yeah.
Um, so
So,
was that
and
all
then,
12?
yeah, yeah, I'm thinking so. I'm not catching anybody that you missed there.
Cool.
Uh, yeah, rain, waves, spirit, courage. Yeah, yeah. I think you hit all 12 there. And then obviously you mentioned 12 by 2024 next year. We're going to have Bay Area and Utah
Yeah.
enter the mix, right? And
Yes.
with a further look at by 2026 having another two teams, and there's a list out there, places like Minnesota, Nashville, Miami, Atlanta that could get a team. Are they gonna like how are they gonna fill out their rosters? Is there an expansion draft type thing? Can we expect to see players move? What are we looking at for that?
Yeah, so they will do an expansion draft.
Hmm.
That's what they did with Angel City and San Diego.
Hmm.
I'm a well, I will assume they're going to do expansion draft unless they
Hmm.
change the rules about drafts and free agency
Right.
again in between. Um, so they'll get to protect a few players. They'll get to protect a few national team players.
Hmm.
And then they'll leave maybe a third of their roster exposed, and
Yeah.
then they'll go back and forth between choosing about 2 to 3 players total
Hmm.
from each team, or
Hmm.
have the opportunity to choose about 2 to 3 players total from each team,
Hmm.
uh, and then they'll fill their rosters out with like signings and the uh, college draft and stuff like that.
So aside from the expansion drafts where you're going to get turnover there, if I keyed in on a player and said, you know what, I'm just a fan of this player, are we going to see a lot of turnover within the league there? Do we expect that type of thing? Is that the type of league it is?
Um, when you say turnover, do you mean like players leaving altogether, or like players being excited to go to like San Diego? I mean, not
Well,
San
yeah,
Diego.
more like if I pick if I pick up Trinity Rodman, I'm like, hey, I'm just her fan now. Wherever she goes, are we going to see her move to Gotham, to San Diego, to Utah potentially, or are the lineups tend to be reasonably static at least within the league, to where you can get you know a franchise player, a face of the franchise type person, and kind of follow them at the same place?
So like you probably would. That's a good question. Like I don't think you're gonna see like a Trinity Rodman move because
Right,
that
right,
is already the face of a franchise in
right.
DC, right?
Hmm.
So unless you have like a hometown kid that you're trying to build around, I
Right.
think you're gonna see like the stars stay where they are,
Okay.
especially the ones where they've already built around that star to keep them in the franchise.
Right.
Um, and then you'll see players come in from outside of the
Right.
league and fill in more.
Right, because and that's one of the things that I don't like about the transfer system in the other leagues is the fact that you get a guy 2 or 3 years, they're doing great, and then suddenly 50 million pounds or whatever, and they're off to whatever team kind of mercenaried them and got that. So you either have to just respect the player and hate the team, or you have to start following the new team, and that's the kind of turnover that I think can sometimes turn people off of getting into support, or at least getting into full time support for a club.
Right.
So okay. Um, so how's the refereeing? How good are they, or are they?
Um, uh, Pro is it's on a forever learning curve.
Fair,
Um,
yeah.
and they just implemented VAR this year.
Hmm.
And it's the same VAR that's being used in MLS.
Right.
Um, so I will say that VAR in MLS is vastly different than VAR in like any other European league
Hmm.
that uses it.
Yeah.
I think we use VAR correctly in MLS, but
Hmm.
that's somehow not translating too well over to NWSL.
Okay. So are we getting a lot of controversial decisions? Are we getting interventions where we shouldn't see interventions? Like what do you think's the issue?
Yes. So I think it's more about the controversial interpretations of
Hmm.
what they're seeing.
Hmm.
Because if you read the law of what they're supposed to be seeing
Hmm.
and determining on there, that's where like it's up for. I don't want to say up for. I don't feel like saying interpretation again.
Hmm.
It's it's up to that person, but
Hmm.
it shouldn't be. It should be very much a here's what we see and here's what the rule says and
Right.
this is what we think you missed, and it's no, I didn't miss it, or yes, I did miss it, thank you.
Right.
It's very much a VAR thinks you did it wrong, so I'm just going to go ahead and overturn the call,
Right.
and
Okay. So that
that's not what VAR is supposed to be used for. It's
right.
supposed
Yeah.
to be, hey, this is what we think, and maybe you
Right.
should look at it, and then if you look at it and you still say no, I think I'm right, then cool, but that's not
Right.
how it's really being used.
So it's supposed to be a consultation and not just a dictated, "Hey, fix this."
Right.
Right. Okay. Do the referees miss a lot though? Are they consistent? You said there's always a learning curve. There's a fine line there though that I see that I want the referees to be bad enough for me to give something to banter and those in jest excuses, but I don't want them to be so bad that it actually impacts the game. Uh,
uh,
do you find that that's about where they are, or do they need work?
so I will always say that there's always room for work, just
Yeah.
because it's going to be a um, the game is always changing.
Hmm.
So they're still trying to work VAR out to tailor to the NWSL,
Hmm.
and the way it changes. They've done a really good job of that with MLS. Um,
Hmm.
I think it just needs a full season of like, okay, we've learned that you know these type of things are what we're going to expect and what we really need to be looking for
Right.
within the rights of VAR.
Okay.
So I know a lot of people are not liking it right now.
Hmm.
I want to see a full season of how it has evolved over that season before I
Right.
can say that VAR is bad. Or
Right.
the refs are always going to be the refs. They're going
Yeah.
to help you win a game or lose a game,
Yeah.
and so far they've really helped me lose a couple. But
Yeah, I feel the pain this year too. There's a couple of decisions and that's gone against Liverpool here, especially lately. That okay, well there went top four. Not that we didn't throw that away months ago. So, uh, yep. The so with the mentioned the season, but I forget didn't even ask when does the season run? What's the typical like from when you can start getting excited at training camp? When does the season usually start? When's it end? How does it end? Is it I assume it's a playoff tournament like most American sports. What all we got going on here?
So season can run from like March, April till about the end of October.
Okay.
And then yeah, you'll end the season with playoffs. So um, just one-off seeds, your traditional
Mhm,
bye rounds.
mhm.
It's very much like MLS where half the teams make the playoffs.
Okay.
Um, but there's no like home and away. It's just a one
Just a
game.
one leg. Yep.
And then huh?
Just a one leg.
Uh,
Like that's it.
yeah, just one leg. And then final is at a neutral site. We don't know what that neutral
Okay.
site is yet this year. Last year it was
Hmm.
DC. Year before it was Kentucky, Louisville.
Okay. Right.
Um,
Um,
and
what do you
so
think about that? As far as like, is it good to have it at a neutral site, kind of like cup finals and everything else at Wembley in England, or would you prefer to see it as an actual like the home team is the home team and get the crowd?
no, I like neutral site.
Okay.
Just because it gives people a chance to get to a new city, um,
Okay.
and experience soccer through that city's lens. Um,
Okay.
like DC was so much fun. I've been to
Mhm.
DC for soccer games, but I've
Okay.
never been for like it felt like a 3-day party, right? So
Nice. Yep.
we we hung around, we had breakfast, we did
Mhm.
these games. Supporters that they weren't in the final, but they still felt
Yeah.
like they were hosting a big party. So they did all these really cool things. So shout out to the squadron and
Yeah.
Rose Room Collective. They did a really good job of just like making sure there was something to do for everyone and everyone could go everywhere. So like their night before party, their kick around the morning of, um, they set up a really cool like pregame
Yeah.
party at one of the bars near the stadium. But I got
Yeah.
to experience DC through the supporters lens of what they do on a typical game week.
Nice.
And it was just a really cool way. And then same thing with Louisville. They set up a night
Mhm.
before party, and it was
Yeah.
like in a big brewery, and they had food
There you
trucks,
go.
and
That'll do it.
well,
Yeah.
then we had a really nice
Yeah.
big open tailgate where people could just walk around and do things, and um,
Nice.
that's what I want. That's that community thing we were talking about of just like,
Yeah.
hey, you may not support my team, but you support women's
Right.
soccer, and you're here
Right.
even if your team is not in it, and we want to show you a good time. So
Yeah.
whoever hosts it this year is going to have some big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Um, it should be fun no matter where we go. I want them to announce it already so that we can just
Yeah.
start planning on where we're going.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like a 3-day NWSL version of Super Bowl week. The
Yeah,
vibes and the yeah. It doesn't matter if as long as you're a fan of the game, get down here and have the party.
yeah.
That that is the exact type of community that I think support and everything else can bring in. I'm glad to hear that NWSL is doing that. So, is there any reason why you would say to skip on NWSL though? You've given me a lot of reasons why to watch it. Is there any reason you'd give me to say, you know what, maybe you skip or maybe you don't, you just stay as a neutral? Is there anything you can think of?
The only reason you shouldn't be watching this league is if you hate fun.
Well done, well done. Yeah, I know it's had a rough time, especially in the media and everything else with some of the scandals, some things that have come out, the owners and that's not the players and having had conversations recently with other supporters groups, it's about you're supporting the players, you're supporting the team, you're supporting the game. The owners just happen to be there and making money off of it, so none of that should taint anyone's opinion of the league. I'm guessing just hey, there are bad apples everywhere. Get rid of them and let's heal the game type deal.
Right. I don't wear like Merritt Paulson on my back. I wear
Yep.
Dabinia
Yep.
or Jessica McDonald or Estelle Johnson or, any player in the league, Alyssa Thompson. I don't wear Natalie Portman on the back of my kit.
Right.
I'm
Right.
there to support the players
Hmm.
and the work that they're doing and the product that they're putting on the field. Um, I think you've seen a lot of players say that they just want to play soccer this year.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of fans have taken it upon themselves to do the social justice work that they just are tired
Yeah.
from doing. And you're seeing it pay off on the field with, like we talked about, like any team could win or lose on any given day.
Yeah.
And they're playing freely with joy and happiness. And that's the league that we should have and that people should see and should be celebrating and enjoying. So, like, whatever these teams are doing, sorry, I was getting ready to curse, and I don't think we can do that on here.
You can. I'll mark it as E. We're all good. Do what you need to do,
Right,
or
like,
I'll
so
mark it back.
so like we could say Arnold, we could say Merritt Paulson, all
Yeah.
these all these owners that just need to get out of here. But for now, these players are going to do the best they can to make sure that the fans are happy and that they are happy, which
Yeah.
I can get behind 100%. So this league is going to only grow from these moments of players saying we're taking our spotlight back and we're taking our league back, because the league is us and we want to show you that we can play and play well.
Yeah. And all that does is rally a community around the right things. Is support the players. The players are out there for you. You can be out there for the players, and that's absolutely the relationship I want to see in a league. I give two less about John Henry and that guy. I care about the red shirt and I care about the badge, and the players that decide to put that on. And I'm getting the same out of you in the NWSL. Is I care about the badge and the player that's putting that on.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. So, and then just kind of an extra point here. So I know that some of the NWSL teams, we've got at least one that has an overseas connection, even though rumor is that they're trying to sell. So you've got OL Reign with Lyon there in France. You've got the Houston Dash with the Dynamo. You've got the Pride with Orlando City, Thorns with Timbers, and then Racing Louisville with Lou City. You got the Courage that are affiliated to North Carolina there. Do you feel like if somebody follows a team that they should follow the men's team or the counterpart to that team as part of a club concept? Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, a really good question. Um, I mean, I subscribe to the support all local soccer. So if I'm gonna have a men's
Right.
team and a women's team, I'm gonna support
Right.
both. And when they fall under the same umbrella, it makes it really easy to just buy season tickets for both.
Yeah.
That being said, um, the men's game is not for everyone, and the women's game is not for everyone.
Okay.
They just have their different opinions and their different styles,
Hmm.
um, different history. Do I think everyone should be well, like I said, I like supporting local, so that's going to
Right.
be both
Yep.
my men and women team.
Yep.
But I understand why some don't do that.
Hmm.
But I also feel like that falls on the teams not marketing themselves well to
Yeah.
bring in the
Okay.
men's side to the women or the women's side to the men.
Right.
Um, and I can't fault someone for not knowing. Um,
Yeah.
like, I don't think you see it as a bigger issue here with like the two D1s, like MLS to NWSL, or even some of the USL to NWSL teams. Like
Right.
here in North Carolina, I have NCFC and I have NC Courage. They both fall under the NC Football Club moniker.
Yep.
But there are people that don't go to Courage games, and then there are people that don't go to NCFC games.
Right.
Can't fault you for that, you know. Um, especially because, like I said, different histories, and a lot of teams don't really know how to market both together because they don't want to cross some imaginary line of, are we pandering or are we alienating people that don't care about it, and are we doing
Right.
too much to appease a crowd that's never going to show up, right? So
Right. Do you find that that's more detrimental on the women's side when they can't figure it out, or more detrimental on the men's side when they can't figure out the marketing? So
depends on the market. I
Mhm.
would say 60% of it would probably be detrimental to the women's side more, just because the men's side's probably been there longer, so people
Right.
don't do that crossover well. But when all women's soccer fans only had men's soccer, they were going, so
Right. Yep.
it's just a matter of, but now how do you market to those women's fans that were going, but now are no longer going because they have a women's team? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different categories that is a lot to hit, but you should be you should know how to mesh that together to really market to get those people back in the stands regardless.
Yeah. And the women's game, it's the same game, it's the same ball, it's the same field, it's the same goal, but uh, you are going to see something different. You are going to see something special, and I think the women's game is absolutely should be on the same plane, on the same stage as the men's game. Just there are some amazing athletes out there that do what they do day in and day out. And I think it's a shame when you have people that's just like, oh, it's a women's league, really? I didn't realize that was there. So absolutely, I'd love to see the marketing be up there. Again, it's one of the reasons why I'm looking into it. Like, this NWSL thing is a real thing, and let's get into it. Let's help other people get into it. So, do you have any other final points, any talking point, anything that you just like to say out as far as the NWSL? One final little sell for it.
The only way to truly believe is to go to games.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's we're spread out,
Hmm.
but there's more teams coming.
Yep.
But I would just, any local game you can get to, you'll see the talent. So my best advice is just go to games. Like my friend Andre on Twitter, his best line is, his campaign is go to games, because
Yep.
you won't know until you get there just how fun and how energetic and lively the moment will be, especially after your first goal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's excited supporters excite others, and you can't be there to be excited if you're not there.
right.
So yeah, absolutely. Again, Ebony, thank you very much for joining me and helping me out. Do you have a prediction for who's going to win the league this year?
Oh man, if you had asked me this like before the
Hmm.
season started, I would have said, if Kansas City doesn't win the league, you got to fire everyone.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, they did fire a coach, so I mean,
yeah, true. But
but
now it could be anyone. I'm loving what Orlando is putting together.
yeah.
So I mean, you got Orlando, Gotham.
Hmm.
They're really special. If Angel City can get some players back from injury, God, that's gonna be a tough team. Um, there's really no way of knowing who could win this league on any day, but that's the fun part. So
And yeah, that I think is the best selling point is you can pick anyone and you can have a reason to cheer, and you'll have a reason to cry, and go through the range of emotions with like-minded supporters across the U.S. So,
yeah,
but there again, Ebony, again, thanks for joining me. Thanks for talking me through the NWSL. It's going to be a great league, and is there any place we can catch up with you, or any other thing you'd like to push?
um, you can find me on Twitter.
Mhm.
I think my handle is EbonyC25. Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds right.
Okay.
Um, I'm an open book, so if you have questions, please ask.
Absolutely. I'll end up I'll hit you up and I'll email and you know, as we kind of go through this journey, maybe bounce some things off of you and make sure that I'm still on the right path. But again, Ebony, thank you for joining me. For more info content, you can visit me here at Ranting Blue Penguin. So it's rbpenguinmedia.com. You can email me at rbpenguinmedia@gmail.com. Like, subscribe this, please, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks.
Thank you.